Top 16 teams in women's European football begin their Nations League campaigns later this week, so it's time to give our predictions on match days number 1 and 2. Guys, Matty G back here with you on Football with Flags. Thanks so much for joining us. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so, and want to give a quick shout out to everyone who has subscribed to the channel already. We just hit over 500 subscribers the other day. We can't thank you enough for your support as we continue to try and grow this channel and bring you as much international content as possible. Start things off on match day number 1 on September 22nd, the game between Belgium and Netherlands. These two sides met in the European group stage in 2017. Netherlands would go on to win that game 2-1. Belgium are currently ranked 18th in the world, one of the higher ranked European sides to miss the World Cup this past summer. I do believe this will be a fairly tight contest in the first half, but I've got the Dutch pulling away in the second half by a couple of goals. Wouldn't be surprised to see Lika Martens on the score sheet, Jill Ward, or perhaps some others who played incredibly well this past summer. As for England and Scotland, Scotland come in ranked 23rd in the world. These two also met in the European Championships in 2017, England winning that game 6-0. I do believe we'll see a fairly similar scoreline in this contest, maybe not quite that high, but I do have the Lionesses securing a clean sheet along with at least probably 3 or 4 goals considering they're playing at home. As for the Dutch and the Lionesses on match day number 2 on September 22nd, these are our two most recent European winners. I think that this game is going to be very tight with a lot of good chances back and forth. I do believe we'll see both teams score at some point, whether it's 1, 2, 3 goals, hopefully more. Of course, the more the better. But these two sides did meet as well in that 2017 European tournament, with the Netherlands winning 3-0 as the Dutch would go on to win that competition. But we know the run that England has made the last couple of years and the transformation that this side has had. And despite that World Cup final loss, this is still an incredibly talented team, eager to get back and to prove that they can be one of the best in the world. While I do believe both sides score in this game, I do actually have this game going to a draw at the end of 90 minutes. As for Scotland and Belgium, certainly an important game for both of these sides to try and stay relevant. Again, like we talked, both of these teams have missed the World Cup this past summer due to losses in a playoff. Scotland losing to Ireland, Belgium losing to Portugal. While I do believe Belgium will have the majority of chances, or at least the better chances in this game, I've actually got Scotland taking the 3 points. I think that they might be able to just secure an ugly goal. It doesn't have to be pretty, but just something to put it in the back of the net and could hold on to that lead, considering that they are at home. I think that's going to bode well for them in this contest, and they're going to secure 3 points after match day number 2. After our predictions, a look at Group A1 after the first couple of match days. England and Netherlands, of course, tied on points, but England taking the advantage on goal differential with a potential big score line against Scotland in their opening fixture. Against Scotland, we had beating Belgium in that second game. Call me crazy. I know it may not happen. I know Belgium could get the job done as well, but I do have Scotland taking the 3 points in their second game, and that's why they're in third, with Belgium sitting at the bottom at 0 points. An interesting first matchup between Norway and Austria to begin Group A2. These two sides met in their final group stage game of the Euros a couple summers ago, where Austria survived Norway to advance to the knockout stages before finally getting bumped out in the quarterfinals. Austria, though, were one of those sides that lost in the World Cup playoff as they were beaten by Scotland in the first round. We did see Norway at the World Cup this past summer, of course, but they were definitely inconsistent with their play and not a team that we're used to seeing at their full potential. Of course, with the absence of Ada Hegerberg for a good portion of this tournament as well, really didn't allow them to shine as well as we thought that they could potentially do. I think this will be a very interesting game between these two sides. I think it'll be fairly low scoring. It's going to be important who wins the midfield, who doesn't turn the ball over, and who makes the fewest mistakes, in my opinion. And while, again, I think this is a toss-up game, I've actually got these two ending in a draw to open this campaign. As for France and Portugal, we saw how well Portugal played in their first ever showing in the World Cup this past summer. I think they're going to continue to build off of that into this competition. They're in a tough group, though, but they've got an opportunity to really surprise some people. However, starting off with France, a team that, again, I think are still a bit bitter, losing to Australia in that penalty shootout in the quarterfinals, have something to prove as they are at home to begin this campaign. I think France get the job done in their first game. As for Austria and France to begin match day number 2, definitely feel like we'll see Austria continue to play in a 4-5-1. That's usually what we see them play, or at least here recently. I think it's going to be important for them to try and control or at least overload the midfield as much as possible, really win a lot of battles in there and not give the ball away, but also create a lot of good turnovers and try and counter off of that. I think the fact that Austria is at home is definitely going to help, but in the end, I still feel like France is going to be able to do enough in this game to win, maybe by a final of 1-2-0, maybe 3-1. As for Portugal and Norway, a very important game moving forward between these two. Again, we saw how impressive Portugal was, how well they played against the United States in their final group stage game, almost sending them home. I think this game's really going to be very close. I think it's important that Portugal are playing at home as well. Norway, again, were inconsistent. They struggled to find a lot of good attacking opportunities, and Portugal struggled to, create a lot of attacking opportunities consistently throughout their group stage games. I think it could be a little patchy back and forth in terms of how well we see these teams attack one another. But in the end, I do think that both sides will get on the score sheet, but it will end in a draw. If all goes as planned, according to our predictions, this is a huge chance for France to really jump out of the gate and get ahead of their competitors with 6 points and 2 wins in their first couple of fixtures. Meanwhile, Norway would sit in second with 2 draws yet to be beaten, while Austria and Portugal, you could move back and forth in terms of that 3rd and 4th place spot, just depending on goal differential and how they do in these first couple of games. But again, France with a huge lead, meanwhile the other 3 in a tight battle for 2nd place. If you had told many of us earlier this year that Denmark would finish higher than Germany during the World Cup this past summer, I don't think many of us would have believed you, but it happened. Denmark with a really solid run in their group stage, finishing 2nd behind England before finally getting bumped out in the round of 16. The question for me, though, is can Denmark defend Alexandra Pape of Germany? We know she didn't get a lot of support during the World Cup this past summer in terms of attacking opportunities. It'll be interesting to see how much she gets this time around. For me, though, Pape, we know, is one of the best players in the world with the ball at her feet, her movement off the ball, and how much of a threat she is in the air as well. I think Denmark will put on a good performance in this game, but I've certainly got Germany collecting all 3 points as they need a big response after their disappointing summer. As for Wales and Iceland, 2 teams that are kind of on the brink of possibly breaking out and being pretty good. These 2 teams both lost, though, in a World Cup playoff last year, Wales losing to Switzerland and Iceland losing out to Portugal. I think this game will be fairly cagey. I don't think we'll see a ton of opportunities one way or the other, as again, both of these teams are really still trying to grow and don't want to take a loss in their first game of this group. I think this game ends either in a 0-0 or 1-1 draw. Starting off match day number 2 between Germany and Iceland. Germany, again, in my opinion, really shouldn't have any trouble with this game. I think Iceland, obviously being on the road as well, is going to play a factor in it. And Germany, again, wanting to pounce. If they play well against Denmark, they're certainly going to want to continue that against Iceland. I think we could see a scoreline of maybe 3 or 4-0 in favor of Germany. As for Wales and Denmark, don't forget, Wales looked fairly decent against the U.S. in their final send-off game last year in a 3-0 loss. Certainly something I think that they should be proud of and look to build off of as well, considering, again, the U.S. is still one of the better sides on the globe. However, though, Denmark, again, a side really looking to try and build off of their solid performance this past summer in the World Cup, and I think that those games are certainly going to help them moving forward for this camp. I don't think we'll see a lot of goals in this game either, and I think the fact that Wales is home is certainly going to play a factor as well, but I've got Denmark just edging out Wales in this contest, maybe by a final of 1-0 or 2-1. Potential look at Group A3 as Germany sit atop the table with 6 points, Denmark in second with 3, and then of course Wales and Iceland each grabbing a point off of one another in their opening fixture, but I do believe the scoreline will look a bit more lopsided with Iceland and Germany compared to Wales and Denmark, so that's why I've got Iceland sitting at the bottom of the table. Last but not least, we begin Group A4 with a matchup between Sweden and Spain, which we saw in the World Cup semifinal earlier this summer. Big question is who is going to be involved, though, for Spain. We know that 20 players who signed the petition have been selected for these upcoming matches. We'll have to wait and see if they're involved or not, though they could potentially face a fine and some other punishment as well if they do not participate. It'll be interesting to see how this all unfolds for them. Of course, we'll have to see what the roster looks like. I know that they've been dealing with stuff in terms of club, and I'm really not sure how much that they've even been involved with each other or together. But I do think that Sweden are ready to pounce. I know that obviously finishing third was not what they wanted this past summer in the World Cup, considering that's the fourth time that this federation has done it. I think that they're really excited for this opportunity, and I do have them beating Spain in this opening fixture and taking 3 points. Just a lot going on with Spain right now. And again, while this team is so talented, I think just considering how dirty the air is at the moment with so much going on, this could play a factor in how well they are able to perform, especially against a side as good as Sweden. In terms of Switzerland and Italy, we saw Italy edge out Switzerland in their World Cup table to qualify a couple years ago by 2 points. However, Switzerland did beat Italy in that qualifying process on the road 2-1. I think Switzerland are able to get the job done this time around at home. I don't think it will be easy, but certainly Italy did not impress us as much as we thought they would this past summer in the World Cup either. Switzerland have had a run of draws while they've played at home against a various number of different opponents, but I think they're able to get the job done this time around, and we could see a scoreline such as 2-1 once again. As for Italy and Switzerland on match day number 2, of course, we saw Sweden thump the Italians 5-0 in that group stage game in the World Cup this past summer. I don't think it will be that high of a scoreline this time, but still really not sure what we're going to get from this Italian side. I do think, though, that Italy, again, riding the wave of coming off a big win against Spain, will be able to get the job done on the road against Italy with a decent scoreline as well. Last but not least, Spain taking on Switzerland. We saw this was the run that began their knockout stage for Spain with a 5-1 win against Switzerland in the round of 16. Again, still a lot of uncertainty, but I think the fact that this is maybe not quite as tough of an opponent against Switzerland this time around, still going to be a difficult game, even though Spain is playing at home. I think Spain are finally able to get the job done. I think they'll be able to calm things down, settle some stuff, and maybe just being back in camp with some of these players. Hopefully a loss to Sweden will help kind of right the ship a little bit too, in terms of saying, hey, we can still get back on track here and still get to the semifinal. But again, I know that they're facing a lot off the field as well, and certainly want to deal with that as best as they possibly can. But I do have Spain at least getting the job done in this second fixture. Not really a fan of saying it like this, considering all that Spain's team is going through right now off the field, but this is a huge opportunity for Sweden to come out of the gate, take a couple of wins, take command of this group early, and really kind of set the tone. Again, they've got Spain right off the bat. We do have them winning that game, as we said before, so they're at the top with 6 points. Spain, of course, taking second place with that win over Switzerland, so their goal differential will probably be a little bit better. And then, of course, Italy at the bottom with 2 losses to start things off. Well, guys, thanks again so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like and subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And please let us know down in the comments as well your own predictions for these games, along with who you're rooting for or anything else you'd like to let us know about. We've got, again, plenty more coming your way with other international competitions moving this direction, and we can't wait to get to it with all of you. Again, guys, hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you soon. Peace.